All right, right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Seven Figure Screw Ups, where we talk specifically about screw ups of people who are really successful today. So it's my pleasure today to talk to Jason Van Orden, who, did I pronounce your surname well? Van
Yeah,
Orden?
that's it. Yep.
All right. So I met actually Jason a few times, but we didn't have a chance to talk too much over a dinner. There were a lot of people. So Jason has been around in online business for quite some time. It's more than 10 years now. And for example, he's been running his podcast for more than 10 years, and most people are talking for the last 2 years about podcasts. So he knows what that is on a really deep level and knows how to turn podcast into profit as well. But his core business is really helping others succeed in their online business, whether they're bloggers, they're authors, they want to build online courses, and helping them set up content, the content management system, the content strategies, build systems and funnels, and turn that into really a profitable online business. Was that a correct introduction, Jason? Or?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, thanks. Sounds great.
All right. So today we'll be talking about, of course, screw ups. So I will basically start by asking you, before we talk about one or two or three screw ups you want to talk about, is where were you in your life just before you started experimenting with this thing that turned into screw ups?
Yeah, so before I started dabbling with entrepreneurship and the screw ups that I'm going to share today, I was an engineer. I was a software engineer. I had graduated after 5 years of engineering, university, and gone and got a good job, earning what I thought was a great salary at the time. I was just following the program. It felt safe. It was kind of checking off the boxes, where I come from or where many people come from. It's just, get that degree, get the job, get the wife, eventually get the house, and I was on that path. But, relatively quickly, I found myself very much not enjoying that path, and even reaching a point of feeling very depressed by the fact that I thought my life might be that for another 35 or 40 years. Thankfully, my path got pushed in another direction, and through a series of experimentations and screw-ups, led me to where I am today. But that's where I was before that journey began. That's
great. So you didn't get from that point to being successful like in a linear way? You just do something and you become successful? No?
All right. Absolutely not. No.
I was just kidding. So most people see that linear line from A to B, and that's why I'm doing this series actually. So as you were making that transition, so what are some of the screw ups that you made along the way?
Right. Okay. So there's a few milestones that happened over about a 3-year period. And when you asked me to think about like a failure or a screw up, this is what came to my mind. And we can define failure or screw up in a number of ways. And I feel like a lot of people shy away from failure, or at least define failure of some sort by maybe some kind of loss or cost that has resulted from actions that they've taken. They've lost time, they've lost money, the results weren't what they expected. There's an opportunity cost, maybe because they went down this path and that meant giving up this other path over here. And in hindsight, it's easy to go, oh, maybe I should have done that instead of this because this didn't get me where I thought, whatever, right? But I love sharing this particular 2 or 3 year period of my life because it does very much demonstrate that nonlinear path. And a number of themes will show up throughout this story. So the first failure or screw up that occurred was that at some point, after about 3 years of being an engineer, I decided to just quit my job and pursue real estate investing as my path, in the hopes that would open up new levels of freedom and income and possibility. I reached that decision by reading books such as Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and a number of other things and courses. That in itself was about a year or two of exploration of figuring out what are my possibilities, because this is not making me happy what I'm doing right now. And I really had this crazy kind of naivete about I was going to make this happen. I remember sitting down and writing up a spreadsheet of how much money how many deals I was going to do every month and how much money. Because here's the thing, it's not like I had tens of thousands of dollars in the bank to back me up by quitting my job. My wife was working, making a little bit of money. We even cashed out some of my retirement fund. We even used some credit cards to get some business expenses taken care of early on. So we were making sacrifices and going all in a lot of ways. And some people would think, well, that's just crazy to have cut bait on my job at the point that I did. Whoop, I'm sorry, I just hit my microphone, getting so excited. Now, everybody has a slightly different path or decision, and I'm not saying that's the way that some people should go. But I say that to say that, fast forward several months later, and it certainly was not working out the way I had expected. I wasn't making the $20,000 a month on deals that I expected I would be able to. Part of me believed I could, or I would have never told my boss, I'm out of here. But in hindsight, I'm very grateful that I took that step because it catalyzed a process of learning about myself, finding new possibilities, and seeing new paths that I would have not discovered at all had I not jumped in to an experimentation mode and just started taking action. No amount of continuing to read books, continuing to take courses was going to illuminate the things that I started learning as a result of going down this path, even though it did not get me where I was going. I managed to close a deal as a real estate investor and make a decent amount of money off that deal. But ultimately, I found out I wasn't that good at the wheeling and dealing, calling the banks and all this stuff that you need to be able to do well as a real estate investor. I wasn't good at being able to walk into a house and see the possibilities of what it could become. So it's like, oh, I could fix this thing up and flip it. That was totally not me, right? So I was not in the right place.
So you were not making the money that you expected to be making. How long were you trying to make it in real estate? And
so I continued down that real estate path I quit in 2003, August. And I would say by about June or July of the following year, it was becoming clear to me that I needed to move on to something else.
God. And what was the actual failure? So you basically weren't making the money that you wanted to make. You were unhappy. You didn't find that you're using your strengths. So
right. I wasn't using my strengths. So I was enjoying a new level of freedom, but it wasn't producing the results I thought. And, this whole time I'm starting to go a little bit more and more in debt, or at least burn through, whatever resources I had to kind of build out this horizon of starting to make money. And so it started to feel like it was time for a pivot. The next pivot, however, came to me as a direct result of dabbling in that real estate. By going into real estate, I found a real estate mentor, who at the same time was holding seminars to teach people how to do real estate investing. He'd had all the success over the years. He had lots of people asking them to teach him. So he said, great, I'm going to rent out a ballroom. People can come. And that fascinated me. In fact, that was my introduction to what some people call information marketing.
Welcome to the information product space.
Exactly. Like packaging up your knowledge and expertise. And here's the thing is, thinking back to my earlier days in college, which were some of my happiest days, I had an opportunity to be a teacher of a class for 2 years as an undergrad, and I loved it. I loved teaching. However, I knew that I wouldn't be happy, say, as a professor teaching college. But here I was discovering information marketing, which was a way for me to teach people and make really good money at it. So now it's just a matter of, well, what do I teach people? So even though I'd spent all these months and all of this savings and resources going down this failed real estate investor path, it directly led me to my next experimentation of information marketing. Well, as it turns out, during all of that time, I was also in a band, and I was learning a lot about marketing while I was in that band, because we were very serious about it. And I was trying to figure out, how do I sell my CDs? How do I get people to show up to my shows and things like that? And I discovered I was quite good at marketing, and I liked it. So what I was doing more of in my real estate investing circles, rather than putting deals together, I found myself sharing all these marketing tips with all my buddies and friends that I was meeting in the real estate investing circles. And so finally this light bulb went off. Maybe I can do a seminar, not about real estate investing, because I haven't had enough success to talk about that. But I certainly can teach all of these real estate investors about direct marketing, because I have shown success in that. And so I decided, again, to jump right in. And I booked a room at a local college. I I had a mailing list. People would call this a launch these days, which you normally do to like an email list. I had a mailing list of 83 people, which were essentially real estate investors I had met locally, basically copying a campaign from a very successful direct marketer of the time, Dan Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get 25 people into a room for $250 or $200 each. So I made $5,000 off of that. Off of selling tickets to this event. And on that day, I was like, okay, light bulb, information marketing is definitely more for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
that was go smoothly also, or
was that smooth?
After that first success that you said you did a seminar, you followed someone else, like Dan Kennedy's teaching, and $5,000. So I was wondering whether that went also A to B linear, or you had also like a first time when you hit the wall in information products?
Right. That's a great question. This time it actually did go quite well the first time. And sometimes it is that way. You take that massive action and things turn out right. Okay. So from the point of going, maybe I should do a seminar, to making $5,000 on my seminar, was only probably about 6 to 8 weeks time. And it happened to turn out well enough for me to go, okay, this is feedback. This is good. I enjoy this. I can do this. People are paying me for value. However, pretty quickly, I've kind of sold out my immediate network of people who are willing to pay me for this information. And I was stuck. I needed
no traffic.
I was like, okay, yeah. How do I sell more of that? Now, I was smart enough to record my seminar. And so I had these CDs, these audios, and it was CDs back then. This is 2004. And so, I'm looking now, well, I need a way to sell more of this. And that's where I discovered this thing called internet marketing, just through, again, exploration and studies. And so I'm like, okay, so if I go online, now I can sell to people not just local to me. But it wasn't an immediate success. I mean, there wasn't social media or paid advertising online or any of this stuff that we have now these days. So it was showing up in forums and experimenting. And eventually I did get some success and sold a bit here and there, but it wasn't enough to live off of yet, right? So I proved this idea, but I hadn't scaled it to the point that I needed to. So in all this experimenting and studying of internet marketing, in 2005, I came across a word in an email newsletter that I was subscribed to, and the word was podcasting. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that word, and it intrigued me because I didn't know what that was. And so I did a little search in Google, and I thought, well, what is podcasting? And Google tried to correct me because Google didn't know what podcasting was either. I thought I'd misspelled the word. But very quickly, I kind of fell upon some blog posts that were explaining in very geeky terms, because that's the only people who were doing it at the time, these geeks that were like, and I'm a geek too, who just like freaking out about new RSS standards and MP3 stuff that like the average person is not going to like. But thankfully, I had the engineering background, I had the marketing background, and I had like the audio background to understand everything going on around podcasting. And a light bulb went off and said, new opportunity here. So that was my next experiment to dive into. I launched 3 podcasts. One that was just kind of for fun, one with a friend of mine, and another one that was just to kind of talk about things I was discovering about podcasting as I went. 2 of those podcasts failed, or just didn't get me to where I thought they were going, and didn't produce results. But it turns out that one of them took off. And very quickly. How did it make you feel that
the other 2 didn't work? Like, what was the impact of that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question too. The first one, I think I kind of knew that. So the first one was about living in New York City, because I just moved to New York City at that point, and people were asking me, what's that like living in New York City? So part of me knew that, well, that's not really like a money-making thing, but it's something I could enjoy talking about. And so I'll at least like figure things out about this process of how do you make a podcast. So it was, for me, it was more, I framed it in that way. It was more of just an experiment to learn. And so when the first one, I realized this isn't worth my time anymore because it's not leading me where I need to go. I wasn't that broken up about it. The other one that didn't, it lasted for about a year, and I guess actually it did get me some notoriety and presented a couple opportunities, but pretty soon I could see that, and that was the one about podcasting. It wasn't growing at the rate, at least that I wanted to, But what it had done is it had led me to an opportunity to write a book and to launch a website that became very popular about how to launch a podcast. So even though the podcast itself never like took off in this big way that I thought and hoped that it might, it led to other opportunities. So thankfully, like by the time I was looking at that going, okay, this is no longer worth my time to do. I saw that not as lost time or opportunity, but that it simply had, again, served as a stepping stone. So as you can see, like basically the theme throughout each of this is it's just a set of experiments, one following another, that I see as an opportunity for me to learn, an opportunity for me to get some feedback, and that I'm hoping that in the process of doing it, maybe I'll get the ultimate result I'm looking for, or I might just, even if it just opens up new possibilities I would have never thought of otherwise, really it's kind of a success more than it is a failure. So
it's so interesting what you're saying. So as you said, first of all, and the way I'm hearing it is that you started with the first thing, like went to real estate, and that actually created momentum. And as we know, when you build momentum, you start moving, you continue to move, like we know from physics, like the object that starts to move continues to move. And then every one of these, as you're mentioning, created a possibility, as you say, for something new, which was not obvious from the start. Right? Yeah. But somewhere along the journey, through experimentation and accepting that things won't work, it turned out into something you haven't planned, which is, I think, phenomenal way to frame failure, if it exists anyways, as more of an experimentation and a stepping stone for something else. Right. What are some of your, I think there are phenomenal stories, and the one, as you said, that maybe there's there's no connection, software engineer, then real estate, then marketing, then podcasts. You would say maybe there's a link, but maybe there's not a link. But always the previous one led to the next one, which is really interesting. Now, what are some of the for people who are listening or watching, what are some of the ways that nowadays you're an experienced entrepreneur? What are some of the ways that you deal with fear of failure on a day-to-day basis? Because I'm sure you work on your new projects, new ideas, and often, as much as homework we do, we don't know how things turn out. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I don't want to make it sound like I have some impenetrable ego against failure, because there's definitely those times still where I find myself uncomfortable with the uncertainty of things or worried. I'm a perfectionist, and that is basically a reflection of being worried of criticism, for instance, and things like that. So there are times where I guess that fear certainly does hold me back, but a couple things that I do is, I try to reframe it. So this word of experimentation has come up a few times. So, one thing that I do is I think of, well, what's an experiment that I would just enjoy doing, so that, and that it would, see, one of the most important things to me is that my curiosity and fascination are engaged. I'm somebody who loves to learn. So if there's all these possibilities that I'm looking at, and there's a chance that any of them might fail or not get the result that I might hope. I mean, sure, we all hope when we do something that it'll just produce phenomenal results, whether that's money, recognition, opportunity, belonging, relationships, love, whatever the thing is we're looking for, right? But if I can at least find one that it's like, that looks really interesting to me to do, it would fascinate me, it would engage my curiosity, I would enjoy going through the process of trying that thing. And that gives me a couple things. Number one, it helps with that momentum, because just that engagement of enjoying it, going, even if it all of a sudden gets hard. I'm like, well, I'm enjoying learning about and trying to figure this out. So even when it's like, oh, I didn't expect it to be this, difficult. I didn't expect this kind of effort. Hopefully that helps me carry through those moments. And the second thing is that, I try to maintain that perspective of, in the end, this is just an experiment. And so if nothing else happens, and let's say I don't make the money that I want or get the opportunity that I want, that at least if I can look back and go, you know what, I enjoyed those 90 days of that experiment. That's something. Like, hey, at least I got to do something that I enjoyed. So that's why I try to choose the one I'll enjoy, as opposed to the one that I just think I should do because maybe other people are saying that's what you should do. And then, and hopefully I can look back and it opened up some new opportunity, aha moment, lesson about myself, unlocked some new skills that then I can leverage into a new direction that I most likely would not have seen had I just sat still the 90 days prior rather than going through. So it's just some of these reframings that help me finally move forward.
And it sounds really powerful, I must say, because the way I hear it is that you bring another component, which is not just tangible outcome, which often can be measurable in terms of, clicks, leads, or money made, right? Top line, bottom line, but also in how much you enjoy, like the level of fulfillment. And in a way, you're kind of creating your own success rules. Like if I'm enjoying that, consider success, not only if I'm making money, leads, clicks, pixels. So that's kind of a new definition of success, where you're curious, you're learning a new skill, and you're also enjoying. So it's kind of almost like a list: what does success look like, and what does failure look like? So if you would be not enjoying, not curious, but make money, maybe that wouldn't be successful, right? So it's very interesting how you frame it, and I think defining your own rules for success is a really powerful reframe for. I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from doing just this one thing on a day-to-day basis. One thing, right? So you feel empowered even when things don't work well, and see it as an experiment, as you said. That's
Absolutely.
Great stuff. That's great stuff, Jason. And finally, where can people find you online if they want to hear more about your podcast, your programs? What's the best way to find you?
Right. So what I'm doing these days is I'm doing a lot of business and marketing strategy for influencers and thought leaders. And what I enjoy doing is diving into their businesses and helping them pivot or upgrade their business model, because maybe they've hit some kind of a ceiling. They're looking back and like, I'm a few degrees off of where I'd like to be income-wise or opportunity-wise. So it kind of relates to what we've been talking about. And so sometimes, often my clients come to me when they are at that point of they've hit some kind of ceiling and they see that they need to pivot. And so having that, sometimes you need that outside perspective. And that's something we didn't talk about, but I give that outside perspective to help people go, okay, what is it in your model or what you're doing right now that maybe could be tweaked to unlock new possibilities, or here's the next experiment that you need to do in your business to take things to the next level of core objectives. So that at jasonorden.com is where people can find out more about me, sign up for my newsletter, read my content, whatever they'd like.
Got it. Okay, so we'll also put the link on the page where we have this video. So it's basically, you said Jason, it was breaking down for a little bit. So jasonvanorden.com, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, JASOVANORDEN.com.
All right. Thanks, Jason. It was an absolute pleasure talking with you today, and thanks for sharing your scrubs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Buzzy.
Bye.